So, what does it mean to truly let go without giving up your power? What's interesting too, when you think about who gets riled up, there will be some pushback. So, a lot of times we have things that will happen that appear to be negative, right? But in reality, it was actually perfect. And so, when you surrender, what happens is it actually will create space for miracles to open up in your life. Hello, spiritual friends, and welcome to another episode of Life Ascended, where we focus on our divine potential every day. And today I want to talk about a topic that I think a lot of people are aware of, but maybe they don't know what to do about it. So today's topic is, of course, it's a misunderstood part of our spiritual journey is sacred surrender. So what does it mean to truly let go without giving up your power? We're going to explore how to move through the fear of the unknown, release control with grace, and allow miracles to unfold in your life. And I'm going to start off today's episode with a story about when I first started to read hands professionally. So I was retired from my previous career, which was I ran my own restaurant for 7 years. And I essentially was retired for about 2 years. During that time, I ended up going back into the restaurant business because I was bored and I just needed something to do. But the universe had other plans for me. And that's when I went to the library one day and I picked up this book on palmistry. And I had this really profound deja vu experience. And that's how I got started in reading hands in the first place. So looking back on the big events of my life, I was definitely being guided the whole time. And, maybe you've been guided as well. And I want you to think about some of the big pivots that have happened to you in your life. But the problem that I had was that I was still kind of stuck in my old identity. I still thought of myself just as a restaurant owner. I only know how to run restaurants. I don't know how to do anything else. That was part of my problem. And the other problem I had was I didn't know if I could actually pull it off and make a living reading hands. But I didn't give up, right? So that's really what we want to talk about is what is surrendering versus giving up. Okay, so giving up would be just saying, well, I'm not going to read hands. I'm just going to continue to work at restaurants the rest of my life, and I'm going to be okay with that. Maybe that's all that I'm meant for, all that I'm good for. That is a very limiting belief, right? We have those limiting beliefs that come up. Surrendering, however, is what I chose to do. So I kept reading hands, I kept studying, I kept trying to improve myself, and I kept getting feedback from people as I was reading, especially in those first several months when I was really training hard and I was trying to grasp the language of the hands. And the universe presented me with a location. And it was in Salt Lake City, Utah, is where I first got started. And the owner of the store, it was a natural health store. He was very kind. He said, come into my store anytime you like, set up your table and read hands. So I essentially had a place to go anytime the store was open and I could set up whenever I wanted. And this invitation was what I needed but I was still holding on. This is what's so funny looking back. I was still holding on to, well, I don't know if I can make enough money at reading hands versus what I make at the restaurant, because I was working about 50 hours a week at the time. And that's pretty, actually, that's pretty low hours for a restaurant. When I had my own restaurant, I was working a lot more than that. But 50 hours is still quite a lot for most people. And when you're working that many hours, you really don't have a lot of other hours to do, other things, other than the basics of, maybe getting your grocery shopping done or something, or getting your oil changed in your car. Not too many things you can do. So the universe was really interesting at that time because my boss, who I was working with at the time at the restaurant, she started to get a little upset that I was reading hands on my break. And everybody wanted their hands read, all the other employees. And, I did it on my own time. I did it on my break. So it's not like I was letting it interfere with my job. But in her mind, it was, it's like, oh, how dare she do that? She was a different person a little while ago. Now suddenly she has this passion and everybody's responding to it. And I don't like that, So it's interesting too, when you think about who gets riled up when you start tapping into a true passion and a true calling, there will be some pushback. Right. So again, this is where the giving up energy comes in. And it's like, oh no, just give up. Like, don't do that. And I'm here to tell you, if it really is a passion of yours, you need to follow it. It was kind of funny. I ended up having this huge blow up with my boss at the time. And my husband, who's now my ex-husband, he was the protector, right? So he was the strong, masculine, spiritual warrior type, and he was not going to have any of that. He actually called my boss and told her off. Which I look back on it now and I'm like, oh my gosh, how perfect is this? But at the time, I was completely and utterly embarrassed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how could you do this? You're burning my bridge. I'm not going to be able to ever show my face in the restaurant ever again. And it was actually pretty interesting. Now, of course, I'm far enough away from this, I can totally laugh about it. But what he was doing and what the universe was doing through him was pushing me out the door and trying to help me recognize that I was actually meant to move into this new career. So a lot of times we have things that will happen that appear to be negative, right? We think, oh no, I just had this horrible fight with my boss. Oh no, I had this horrible event happen with my husband and my boss. We can look at those things and we can think, oh no, this is terrible. But in reality, it was actually perfect and it was actually exactly what needed to happen. And that is an example of the surrendering, right? So I surrendered to those events and I surrendered to what was happening around me. And I also surrendered to my own inner knowingness that my guides had told me, you need to study this again. You need to study hand analysis again. And that really was an affirmation that I had been doing this for multiple lifetimes. And I knew, I didn't know where it came from or what was going on with that, but I knew that I had studied it before. All right. Even though I couldn't remember that lifetime, I couldn't remember the details of it, but I knew that it was a big part of my essence. All right. So when you get triggered with stuff like that and you get activated, and the universe is really trying to push you to follow up. Don't just discount it or just toss it aside or just, go, oh, well, maybe next life. Don't do that. I would love for you just to start recognizing that you have a purpose and you have a reason for being and you have something within you that wants to come out and be recognized, right? But sometimes we're so busy and we're so stuck in our patterns and in our lives. And it's like, no, I got to go to work every day. I got to go run this restaurant. I got to go do this and this and this and this. And I don't even have time to think about anything else, right? So if you are in that place, if you don't even have time to think about it and you're completely ignoring the signs, maybe you're getting those synchronistic numbers. I talk about those in other episodes like 1111 or 999 might be showing up, or 555, representing change, and the nines representing completion. And, I'm just so grateful that I followed my guidance and it led me into that store that I ended up working in for 5 years. And I really got my experience at that time, and it was really, really good for me. So if I would have stayed at that restaurant or if I would have gone back and apologized, groveling, like that's giving up your power, right? That's that's just not right. First of all, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just doing something that she didn't approve of because I was growing and expanding. And that's oftentimes the case with peers and friends who will see you start to grow and change. And then they're like, well, what do you mean you don't want to just go play basketball now or pickleball or whatever? But we always do that every Saturday. People get upset when you start to grow, especially spiritually, and you might end up losing friends. You might end up changing jobs. You might end up in a place where you have no idea how you ended up there. And I would encourage you to allow yourself that surrender of you're not giving up, you're actually activating your ascension. So this is part of the divine collaboration that is absolutely wanting to come through for you. So why is it so difficult? Why is surrender so difficult? Well, we obviously have fear of the unknown. We want things to be predictable as humans. We like things to be a certain amount of sameness, and sameness is comfortable, even if it's not in our best interest, and even if it's not really helping us to grow. We will choose to stay in things far past when it's actually beneficial to do so. So that's the first thing. So we fear that unknown. We are conditioned to control outcomes, right? So we're designed to control things. It's like, well, I'm going to control my life. I'm going to take charge of my life. Especially as Americans, I feel like we're chargers and we like to be in control, right? So if we're not in control, then that can be scary, right? We also have fears of loss or failure or disappointment, that unknown space. Like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to make enough money. That was the big one for me. Even though I had plenty of money. I mean, this is the other thing that's so hilarious, right? You think about, okay, I was retired from my owning my restaurant. We sold the business. We sold it for asking price. We had plenty of money. Okay. This was not even an issue. And yet in my mind, I was still in the mode of work, 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 work. I have to keep working. It doesn't even matter how much is in the bank account. And that's, again, it's the perceptions are so interesting. So it's a lot of times it has nothing to do with reality. And we're just using it because it's a habit, right? So if you've got these habits, you're not alone. Trust me, this is why I'm telling you this story, because it takes some time to really recognize these patterns. And ultimately, we have to let go of that ego attachment And we have to let go of these timelines and these identities, right? So I had to let go of, I'm the restaurant owner. I had to let go of, that's the only thing I know how to do is run a restaurant. I had to let go of the timeline of, well, even though I sold my restaurant and I'm working at a restaurant, I can't see myself on any other timeline. That was something I really had to let go of, and it can be really challenging. By the way, that also shows up in your hands. If you're very controlling, you might have, a big mount of Mars. Okay, this is your power center. This is where your solar plexus chakra is located. It's right above the thumb, and it's this little kind of puffy pillow that's right here. So take a look at your own Mars and see how strong it is. Is it really big and puffy? That's like somebody who's very controlling and wants things to go a certain way. Another thing to check for is how stiff is your thumb? So when you take your thumb and you try to bend it backwards, if you have a very hard time bending it at all, we would call that a stiff thumb. Your thumb is your willpower. So people with really stiff thumbs are super determined and it's got to be this way or the highway. And they tend to be more just stubborn, right? But they're survivors. There are good qualities to it as well. And the same goes for having a strong Mars, right? That's like an advocate energy or somebody who can stand up for others. I mean, there's definitely good qualities to it, but we want to find the balance. And I want you just to ask yourself, what am I clinging to? All right, so that is part of your assignment for today. So when you surrender, what happens is it actually will create space for miracles to open up in your life. And that's ultimately what happened. Okay, so the story continues. I started working in that store. I started getting people coming up to my table, and I had like my little sign that said palmistry readings, 10 minutes or 30 minutes. I can't remember. I think I did up to an hour at that time. And the response was very, very positive. I definitely had people who afterwards they said it was a wonderful reading. They were so happy they did it. They got so much value from it. I started getting really good feedback. And this was after I had already been training for quite a number of months and I was reading so much at that time. But if we actually surrender, we're going to create the space for something even better to show up in our lives. So I had to quit that restaurant job, and I did. After that, I never went back. I never saw that woman again. I never saw the staff again. It was hard because I'm not one of those people who just doesn't give a notice. I actually gave the new owner of our restaurant that we sold, we gave him 6 weeks of training. And so there was a big transition period. And for me, that would be pretty normal to give an employer. I would give a lot of notice. I always did over the years when I was given the opportunity. But this time it was just like, nope, cold turkey, you're done. You're not going back. They're going to figure it out. And ultimately, it was about me really coming to terms with like, okay, the universe is obviously pushing me in this direction. And how can I reclaim that inner peace? So I had to trust, I had to show up, I had to try something new. And I was incredibly nervous the first day I read hands professionally. I was so nervous. And I'm like, can I actually take money for this? That was actually my thought. Like, can I really take money for this? Can I really do this? And looking back on it now, it's like, oh, it's like talking to your younger self. It'll be okay. Right? Because we're trying on this new identity. We're trying on, can I be this person who I want to be and I've wanted to be for apparently my whole life and I just didn't even know it. But anyway, that's the rewards far outweigh the cons, so we shift the energy ultimately from forcing something to happen to going with the flow, and that was really the beautiful part of the whole thing, is I learned to flow with what the universe was guiding me to do. And it definitely turned out way better than I could have imagined. So today, what I want to do with you is I want to take you through a little practice and a meditation that I received from Archangel Raphael. And for those of you who are not familiar with Raphael, he is the master healer, and he also helps to open up miracles in your life. So I received this transmission from him in a meditation. I do a process called automatic writing. I go into a deep trance state and I just write in a notebook, and whatever comes through, comes through. And I've been doing this for about 25 years. I've been doing this for a long time, but it really started to ramp up after I moved to Sedona. And then I started receiving these transmissions really heavily after I moved here in 2019. So I'm going to read to you the transmission, and he refers to a portal in your hands. So again, this is a process that I've learned over the years. I call it palm portal healing. And what we do is we actually need to recognize that our hands are not just to reflect back to us everything that we know about ourselves, but they are also portals to our multidimensional selves. And you can learn to work with these portals, and you can activate change within yourself and really work through all sorts of different issues. You can work through karmic issues. You can work through self-doubt issues. You can work through ancestral issues. You can work through pretty much any emotional or mental block that you have, which is why this is the work that I teach now. By the way, if you're interested, I do have a program called the Diamond Path Program, and it helps you to activate all of these portals and really work with them for your own personal growth and ascension. And so, in my opinion, this is the most important thing that we can be working on right now, because that's the timeline that we're in. We're in the pathway of ascension. And really, you look at AI, right? You look at the progress that is already happening with AI, and you think, wow, computers, technology, stuff is really happening really fast. But what about us? What about humans? What about our own evolution? And the answer to that is you are also evolving, and at a very rapid pace. But you need to be ready, and you need to actually be doing some things proactively, just like I was starting to read hands proactively, right? I started practicing, I started reading, I started doing things that were more in alignment with who I was becoming. So you are becoming an ascended being, and we are all ascending at this time. But how to actually achieve that is going to be through working with these tools and processes that the higher dimensional beings are teaching us. And so that is why I have dedicated my life now to these processes and to these transmissions to the higher dimensional realms, and really helping you to move out of your stuck energy, your stagnation, the parts of you that want to just give up. And I don't want you to give up. I want you to be allowing that better version of you to emerge. Okay, so if you're interested in that, just go to ascension17.com and take a look at some of my programs. I've also got some custom mentorships that I do as well. So if you're really interested in learning from me, I would be honored to work with you. So back to Raphael. Okay, so he talks about this portal of change, which is located right in the center part of your palm. And so what I want you to do is just focus on that part of your palm and maybe give it a little massage. Let's wake it up. It's going to be on both hands, right? So we have the center in both part of our hands. Just go ahead and just wake those up. All right, and I'm going to read to you the transmission. Hello, Cynthia. This is Archangel Raphael here to assist you in your time of change. You are well prepared, but still are affected by many things, including the collective consciousness. There remains fear and uncertainty throughout much of the field. Call on me to assist you in the portal of change, to let the lower vibrational dissonance fall away as you welcome the new. It is a higher frequency set point to become your normal vibration and way of being. Here is an invocation to speak into your portals of change. Okay, so now before I read this part, I want you just to bring your hands, line up those portals of change, one over the other, and then just go ahead and just put it over your heart. This helps to really activate it. And I'm also going to be playing a tone for you. It is the solfeggio tone that corresponds with change, and it's the 417 hertz. All right, so this tone specifically helps you to surrender and to move into that vibration of change. All right, so, and you can go ahead and just close your eyes for this part. And just repeat this to yourself. Archangel Raphael, I welcome, allow, and invite your assistance to open and activate my portals of change to now accelerate and ascend into the higher realms and faster frequencies that shall become my resting vibration. I humbly surrender all shame, guilt, sorrow, anger, frustration, fear, and uncertainty from my body, essence, aura, and etheric fields in all timelines and all dimensions now. They shall no longer be able to penetrate or implant into me to disrupt my ascension. I am safe, secure, worthy, and loved by the one Creator, and feel this fully in my portals of change now. Thank you, and so it is. As you invite this into your portals of change, you shall be uplifting the spells of the collective, still in the illusions of separation. Be at peace and know that I am with you now and always. All right, so you can go ahead and release your hands. And that is the message today from Archangel Raphael. I do get messages from different archangels and also different galactic guides and ascended masters occasionally as well. So I never know who's going to come in, but they always tell me before they come in. And when I do my writing, they always announce it. So I want everybody just to pay attention to synchronicities, especially after you let go of something. So just notice how you feel right now, for example, after just doing that powerful invocation. Maybe your heart feels more open, or maybe you're noticing things a little bit differently. And I would definitely recommend that you keep a journal and just pay attention to what are you releasing, what shows up in its place, right? So you can be very conscious about it, and you can start to co-create your life by having a dialogue with yourself, with your higher self, or with your spirit guides. And they want to help you. So keep asking, what is it that I need to release? Especially around the full moon is like the best time to really ask that. And just make sure that it doesn't mean you're not doing things. Remember, we're not giving up. We're just allowing the divine to help us, but we're also pay attention to that overdoing, right? The over efforting, which is so common and so easy to do. It's like, well, for example, once you make that decision, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I want to ascend, right? Maybe you're going to decide that. I want to ascend right now, which I love my mom so much. She's terrific. But she's always asking me, when are we ascending? And my answer is always the same, when we're ready. When we're ready, that's when we're ascending. And every single person is on their own timeline. We can't force it. We have to just be proactive in what we're doing with that surrendering aspect coming in. So just remember that surrendering is sacred. It is not a weakness. It is actually a spiritual superpower. So this is now something that you can empower yourself with, and definitely reflect after listening to this episode. What is one thing that you are ready to release? And hopefully you will find something that you're ready for. So you can also just call in this intention. We can put this right back on our heart. I surrender the need to control, and I trust the divine timing of my life. I am safe, I am supported, and I am free. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear in the comments what you are surrendering. And please make sure to follow our show. Please like us. I want to grow this channel as much as possible. So please get the word out and share with one of your spiritual friends about the show so they can tune in as well. And until next time, let's ascend together. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Life Ascended, where you can discover your divine potential every day. Please show your support by tuning in, following, sharing your comments, and inviting others to listen. Take it further by visiting Ascension17.com for deeper spiritual growth, guidance, programs, and products.